live stream on?
Okay, so now that the live stream on, are you excited about this?
Yeah. Alright, so thank you so much for coming. That was a great introduction by my friend there, Danny Martinez. One of the stars of Liberty Hangout, which is live streaming right now, as well as an Emancipated Human. So I'd like to thank both Facebook pages. You guys are excellent, and I hope you enjoy this. A lot of people are excited about this. So where do I begin? I'd like to say a few things. My experiences with Adam Kokesh and Augustus Invicus have been nothing but pleasurable. Kokesh has thanked me so many times for putting this together. And I think he was supposed to call me. He didn't call me. He was like, Luis, I'm sorry. I mean, he was very apologetic. He's a very nice guy. So I want to thank him for coming. Thank you, Adam Kokesh. Same goes with Augustus Invicus. He's quite a gentleman, nice guy. And I think this is going to be quite a matchup. I'd like to say Invicus is one of the more articulate guys in this movement. I don't know if you've heard him talk to that. I mean, whenever I hear his speeches, I have like a dictionary next to me, and it's like, okay. So he improves my vocabulary. So that alone I'm thankful for. Thank you, Augustus. And Kokesh has been doing this for, what is it, 10 years?
10 years February.
10 years. That's impressive. He's woken up so many people, and he's made so many friends for such a long time. So I mean that's amazing, Adam. I'm speechless for once. So those of you that don't know me, as Danny said earlier, I am the chairman of the Roth Party and Circle / America's Future Foundation. I started it early in 2013, and we've had excellent guests, and I hope more of you come. Yes, we're ready for this debate. I'd like to say that I'd go over some of the rules with you. So now that you know who I am, I know you guys were looking at me and you're like, oh, look at this hipster. He's probably a big lefty. He's probably a Democrat or worse, a left libertarian. I'm kidding. Liberty Hangout is loving this right now. So anyhow, this is the format that we're going to go. It's an Oxford-style debate. So we're going to have a thesis stated by each of our candidates. Adam won the coin toss earlier, so he's going to state his thesis. It's going to be short. It'll be about 1 minute, right? We have a timekeeper there. And then what's going to happen is Augustus is going to have his thesis, right, or his stance. And then you can either provide a rebuttal to this Adam Kokesh's thesis, and then Kokesh, you come and you respond to him. We'll go like this, jumping from topic to topic, and then at the very end you can have a closing statement, each of you. So we're kind of playing it by ear, to be honest. So with that being said, give a round of applause to both Augustus Invicus and Adam Kokesh. Oh, he's going to present it.
So if I may take just a tiny privilege off the clock before we get started. You have noticed my voice isn't what it normally is. I'm not sick. I have a best friend named Baloo, like the bear from Jungle Book. He's a 100-pound pit named Mix, who's been my best friend for the last 7 years, and he went missing on Thanksgiving. And when I got home to Ashford, Arizona, in the snow yesterday, I spent several hours hiking around, losing my voice, calling out his name everywhere around my property in Ashford, where we had walked together, and found out just 30 minutes ago that he has been found by one of our wonderful neighbors in Juniper Ranch, so it's been a huge relief to me. I apologize for the inconvenience to your ears, and thank you for your understanding on this tonight. So, my dog ran away, and with everything that has been happening here recently, I was afraid my life was turning into a backcountry western song. Trying to get on the set so I could play in reverse. But, no. Anyway, all right, now you can start the clock. On the issue of borders, my proposition is that the only legitimate borders are private property borders. So, if the government comes in and says, we have drawn an arbitrary line on a map that says this is our territory within this line, and then anything outside of it is not our territory, and we're going to control this, that line does not constitute an excuse or justification for unethical behavior, for the moral transgression of violating an individual's right to freedom of travel, freedom of movement. I own a piece of property in Arizona, 10 acres. Government says it's mine, I own it. That means I control it. It means I get to decide who comes on my property or not. I should be able to decide to invite anyone from anywhere in the world to come on my property without anybody putting up a barrier in between us engaging in that freedom of movement and freedom of association. Thank you very much. Was that a minute or?
That was 1 minute, yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah, now give them your stance.
Right. But then I get 3, right?
Yes.
I say my stance and then do the vote.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to take that much time anyway. All right.
So,
Mr. Kokesh has chosen the topic of open versus closed borders. If you went to the Facebook page, there are several topics listed. Like we said, he won the point toss, so this is what we're starting with. So Mr. Kokesh is currently implicitly saying that he is of the open border stance. I would be of the closed border stance, but I've actually never said that. I'm not for closed borders, I'm for a reasonable immigration policy. This is technically an immigration debate. So, if Mr. Kokesh says the only legitimate borders are private property borders, I would disagree. I do believe that we do have a reason for government. I do believe that government is necessary. That is probably the biggest debate between Mr. Kokesh and I, is whether government is legitimate or not. For the first minute? Yes. Okay.
So my position is that government is necessary. That you cannot have a country or a nation or anything else without borders. And so in response to Mr. Kokesh, I do not believe that the only legitimate borders are private property borders. I believe that private property is, of course, essential to a liberal society. It's essential to any society. But it is also the truth that we do have common ground. We do have common property as a people. So the United States of America is a country. And to protect the United States of America, if you're going to protect libertarianism in America, then you have to have borders. You have to restrict immigration. You have to restrict who comes into this country. You cannot have mass immigration into the country, and that is what I've been against since day one. Not against immigration as it stands, but I am against mass immigration. Because if you look into history, all of human history, thousands of years, the number one and only cause of rise and fall of nations is mass migration, either leaving a country or coming into one. So you can say that we can have immigration quotas, we can say we want X number of people from Saudi Arabia to buy from Venezuela. We cannot say that we are going to allow tens of millions of people to come into Latin America, tens of thousands to come in from Syria for a civil war that we may or may not be responsible for. That's a separate issue. Because if you do that, we will destroy your country. Because then you have a mass influx of people who do not share your libertarian values. They have either theocratic values or communist values. They may not share your libertarian perspective. And if you allow that mass immigration, it will destroy you. And so that is why I'm in favor of a reasonable immigration
policy and not open borders. Thank you.
Yeah, one minute.
That's all right.
3-minute rebuttal.
It appears part of the crux of the debate here is the issue of common property and forced collectives. If you believe in freedom, if you believe in individual rights, if you believe in the right as an individual to own property, including land property, the idea of a collective of a nation being anything other than voluntary must be a violation of that private property. I want to kind of skip ahead to this concept of cultural Marxism that is often used as a reason or justification for controlling of immigration. And it's this idea that in controlling immigration, we have to keep out people who are going to come in and vote for our government that is going to violate your freedom. We have to say, you're going to forcibly stop them preemptively because they might come and do something and vote for something that is going to be a totalitarian policy, that is going to be a communist policy, that is going to be a socialist policy, that is going to be some other forced collectivist policy. Well, be careful chasing monsters lest you become one, because by virtue of saying we have to use violence to stop other people from using violence against us, you are preempting that with an immoral act, taking the initiative to do something that is unethical. This is reinforcing forced collectivism. This is creating a plantation that governments want. Augustus mentioned the rise and fall of nations. I think it would be better described as the rise and fall of governments. And if you understand government to be an institution based on the initiation of force, then we should all be celebrating the fall of governments. And the argument from effect on allowing immigration is that it's going to create more of a welfare state. Well, we can turn that around too. You want to make silly arguments from effect that can be evaluated subjectively? I would be more than happy to accelerate the demise of the welfare state in America through crashing it and overwhelming it if that's what liberates us from this particular oppression. The idea of reasonable immigration policy is to say that some violent forced collective called government gets to regulate who comes into a specific geographic area. All of history has shown that government efforts to do such have not only been futile, but counterproductive to freedom. Even in the United States, the attempt to close the border has eliminated its ability to function as a revolving door. As I'm sure some of you here in Miami know, it makes it that much harder to leave when you don't have free access to go across, back and forth, across imaginary government lines known as borders. So if it comes to whether or not we should maintain this plantation, or whether we should form voluntary collectives of people coming together with private property under their own terms, the choice for freedom is clear. The only legitimate borders are private property borders.
Another rebuttal? Yeah, I was going to say, do I get to respond to that?
Yeah.
Or do I, okay. Sign on this one? Three again?
You guys want 5?
Good. All right. So Kokesh makes three main points concerning cultural Marxism and its application to immigration policy. Cultural Marxism. I've watched all of Mr. Kokesh's debates in preparation for this, and I know he loves making people find terms. So I would define cultural Marxism as Marxist ideology applied to cultural studies or the social sciences. So the three main points here, we'll go down the line. One is, he says that the fact that we have to use violence and stop others from using violence against us is somehow a proposition that makes us monsters. I would say that that's just recognition of reality. There are people who are going to use violence against you. There are people who have tried to assassinate me. There are people who are probably out there wanting to hurt Adam. And I guarantee you that if someone came to us right now, Mr. Kokesh, with no problem, bringing that force with a knife to the throat for that person. Because you cannot allow harm to harm you. Now, cultural harm, that is certainly of a different magnitude. It is also more abstract, so it could be argued that it is less severe, but I would argue that it is more severe, because it is more totalitarian. It is applicable to every area of life, family, society, education, to all their core values. And to allow totalitarians, communists, theocrats in this country, mass numbers, who are going to flood your schools and workplaces and everywhere else, it is a real threat. It is a real problem that you have to address. And using force of government to restrict immigration is really not that radical concept. So I'll skip to his third point, because it is second toward that. Concerning immigration policies, Kokesh says government has no right to restrict immigration. Fact is that whether it's government or it's private or common, whatever else, people will be expelled from communities. Whether you have private property borders, or you have borders in the country, people are going to be excluded. Now, whether it's morally right for a person to shoot someone who comes onto his homestead, or whether it's morally right for a soldier to shoot someone who comes into the country, I think that's really just an order of magnitude. It's not morally right or wrong to do one or the other. The fact is that those borders protect us and our life. Third point, actually second, is his section, rise and fall of nations versus rise and fall of governments. Mr. Kokesh says that these rise and fall of civilizations, actually rise and fall of governments, has nothing to do with nations or peoples, and it celebrate fall of governments. Certainly, federal government, which I attacked myself pretty thoroughly. But I would point out, again, going to history, that it wasn't a mass government here controlling North America when Europeans came. Is that 3 minutes? But it was aggregates of tribal communities, and they are now wiped out. Entire Native American civilization that preceded our Colombian civilization now gone. It wasn't a government, it was a nation of people, and now we control this, and it could happen to us as well. Thank you.
You guys want to try 4 minutes? It seems like we have more to say.
I think we're both comfortable keeping it casual and doing whatever you think fosters the best exchange.
So you guys want to try 4 or 5 minutes, or want to continue with 3 minutes? About 3 will keep us. Okay.
So I'm actually kind of shocked to hear someone call himself libertarian, claiming that governments protect us and our way of life. If our way of life is to be subjugated as tax cows, if our way of life is to be regulated by government agents, if our way of life is to have our freedoms curtailed and our freedoms of association and freedoms of movement violated by government, then yes. Government certainly does a great job of protecting our way of life. I think the greatest crux now in this agreement is the concept that Augustus has of the legitimacy of the force collective that is a government or the territory that it controls. To think that by having all of this territory under its control, that gives it the right somehow to do something you as an individual do not have a right to do is an obvious fallacy. This idea of cultural harm is a really bad idea for justification for a violation of the non-aggression principle, for a violation of individual rights. Culture must be voluntary. If we're talking about using force to create or enforce or protect culture, it's no longer culture. It's a force policy created by government. But we have government orders is a plantation that we are kept on by thinking of ourselves as part of this collective as opposed to individuals. So certainly, as Augustus pointed out, I'm really glad to use things have knives instead of guns, because he's probably aware that I'm a convicted felon. We're not defending anybody here with not a gun, but what would be legally constituted firearm, of course. But this really gets to the heart of ethics. We claim to be at the heart of libertarianism. that we own ourselves as individuals. That violate that is a violation of your self-ownership. In any way, do something that is then unethical is unethical because it violates your self-ownership. And the idea that we now have this forced collective, we have forced culture, we have a government that protects our life, clearly requires a certain number of unethical propositions and unethical acts to perform and maintain. If we want to raise the standard ethics in society, we cannot give in to this idea that culture needs to be enforced in some way or protected by violence. Culture must be voluntary. Freedom cannot exist with government forcing culture on anyone. For me, like I said, I own a little piece of land in Arizona. I control the culture on my land. I decide to come on my land. I have no right to say what you do on your land or your property. And I have no right to form a collective called the United States federal government and enforce my policies on people outside of my property.
So you guys want to be the last one on this?
One more quick exchange.
Sure. Okay.
Good go? All right. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Kokesh for agreeing that I am a libertarian. Most people don't even give me that courtesy. I'm just glad we can be on the same page there. I would call him libertarian as well, so I'm glad we're all having hippie lows peacetime. Mr. Kokesh says that shocked libertarian would say something as crazy as the government can protect us, and then he goes to give a litany of government abuses. I would point everyone to Thomas Jefferson's own litany of abuses, perhaps best categorized in the Declaration of Independence. There certainly are government abuses. Everybody knows it. I have spent the last 2 years of my life going over all of them in public very vehemently. Nobody is pretending that the federal government is good. Nobody is pretending that any government is necessarily good. Whether the people in government are inherently noble or more noble than business people or vacations, barbarians, or anything else. I am saying that government is a necessary evil, but it is necessary. Even as evil as it is, and whether you have a collective of people who are farmers who band together and say, no, we're not going to let these people in here, or you have a collective of neighbors in a suburb who form a neighborhood watch, we're always going to have organizations that suit family or that are more organized than a tribe. There will always be aggregates of human organization. There's actually writer Alexander Wint who made the case that all human society is actually heading toward a logical end of the world state. And that is a terrifying thought, because if I stand against anything, it is globalism. And I think if you're denying the nation, if you're denying tribe and family, if you're denying all the units that make our society, you may well be acting with the best intentions toward anarchism. But in reality, anarchism is a theory. It is not historically proved, and what you are doing is you are making it easier for the globalists to take control. You're making it easier for the United Nations to consolidate power. You're making it getting us one step closer to world government, which is what they're all aiming for. So if you want to fight against that, then you have to recognize the reality of tribe and nation over the rest. Human organizations are inherently corruptible because man is self-corruptible and corrupt at the core. So that's why we restrict government, something like rights, or something like separation of powers, checks and balances, because we know that crooked people government. We know the governments themselves are crooked, but they are necessary. Thank you.
One of my favorite authors, Sam Conkin, used to say there are two definitions of libertarian. One, anybody who calls himself a libertarian. And two, anybody who agrees on absolutely everything. I much prefer the first definition. And I want to be inclusive. Libertarianism is about principle. And I think that while we have certain inconsistencies between us, clearly Augustus is a man of principle, discerning as best he can how his principles apply. But to hear a man of principle say that evil is necessary, as opposed to making the genuine intellectual effort to see how humanity can transcend the evil of government is somewhat disappointing. I don't mean to single you out by any means in this. But what we do as humanity move forward towards a state of greater harmony, towards a state of greater love, of less violence. It's important that we stick to those principles and examine them with an intellectual ruthlessness in our honesty, in our application of these principles. So to the point of nationalism in this versus globalism. They are essentially one and the same when we talk about not the night gone government. We're all going to be in a more globally connected world. We're all going to get along more with each other. But in the sense of globalism, as Augustus refers to it, in the sense of the United Nations, totalitarian control, global policies being enforced. What we're talking about is actually an extension of nationalism. And when you enforce this idea of nationalism, forced elected, and you empower government to create these violent policies, restrictions on freedom of movement, you are paving the way for violent globalism. The answer to globalism, that is your fear that we are brought into some kind of global force collective, is not a different flavor of collectivism, called nationalism. It's about individual rights, a higher standard of ethics, and the principle of the non-aggression principle, self-ownership, and what we like to call the message of freedom.
Did you go last? Right?
I got the last rebuttal when it works, so let's start the next topic.
Okay.
So just take out of whatever's left,
and come up with a proposition.
I think free trade versus protectionism is still a viable separate topic.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
1 minute. 1 minute.
All right. So this is the topics. Perhaps the second most important was free trade versus protectionism. Might have been the first on the list, actually. So my own position by default protectionism, being a nationalist and all the rest. But actually, I would take a more unorthodox position in this debate and say that I think it's a false dichotomy. And I think that both of these are predicated upon the fundamental assumption that we see life as materialistic. And I don't. I think that reducing life to economic, material, way of cheapening life. I think that our mission in life to have our government either have trade or protect our businesses. Louis has made the argument that we let companies just do whatever they want in the free market. Why? Isn't that better for America? It is. It's better for America. Business, not for America. Thank you.
I was going to bring up my notebook, and then I realized I had to notes on the subject. To me, this is a very simple subject: free trade versus protectionism. If you own yourself, if you are not a slave, you have the right to own property, the right to own property, the right to decide what to do with it, who to associate with, who to exchange with. That is the essence of society, having that ability to interact with each other as we see fit for our own benefit, for the benefit of others. And I'm actually glad that Augustus pointed out that there is something beyond materialism in this. But it is not simply about exchange for material wealth that most of us in our daily interactions, especially our social interactions, gathering like this. I can tell you from experience, Kelby becomes a libertarian activist to get rich, okay? But I do get the satisfaction of my activism because I have the freedom to associate more or less with who I want, to share information with who I want, and to enjoy what we have as the default of free exchange. So that's my minute. You'll go with my 3 minutes. Okay. So we know that in a society where there is no violence, in an ideal society where freedom is respected, the ideal self-ownership is hailed as sacrosanct. That every exchange is voluntary. That means everybody is choosing their participation. No one is holding their hand to listen to me tonight. I hope. When you exchange with another person, all right, now we're getting everybody to listen. This is not an act of coercion. This is a finger gun. That exchange you are participating in because you believe it value is of value to you believe that it is enhanced in your life. That is the fundamental essence of freedom of choice, to be able to pursue your own self-interest. And I'm glad again that Augustus brought up the non-material aspect of this. Some people say that I'm selfless as an activist for committing my life to this cause. I completely disagree. I do not believe in altruism. What I am doing as an activist is the most selfish, self-serving, greedy thing I could possibly be doing to attempt to bend the world to my will, rather than giving in to other people's ideals and letting them interfere that freedom of mine to pursue myself. I believe that the world is better off. My world is better when you have the same freedom to pursue your self-interest without interference. And what we see in this concept of nationalism and protectionism is disastrous consequences that are predictable with time you interfere with people's ability to pursue their own rational self-interest. What you end up with massive trade imbalances. You end up with economic disparity. You end up with opportunities squandered, stolen from people in the name of controlling an economy, whether it's global, national, local, in the name of some argument from effect. But in order to do that, you have to impose, if not materialism, your subjective value on other people's lives, other people's actions. I don't want anybody to tell me, no, Adam, you can't be an activist. You have to get a real job. No, I am pursuing myself. I am pursuing my happiness. I am pursuing the satisfaction that I get from making the world a better place. From the appreciation of people like who I've met here tonight. Thank you for waking me up to this. Thank you for improving my life. When you have that free of coercion, free of protectionism, people are able to pursue their self-interest by their own values. That's freedom. Thank you.
I don't think there's much I find objectionable in what Mr. Kokesh just said. I would agree that property rights are essential. I would agree that freedom is being able to decide what your property, what you will with your property, the right to pursue your self-interest without interference. I would basically agree with all of that. Where I would disagree is thinking that sort of freedom is unlimited, that we can have some sort of individualism that seeks the bounds of reason, or that we can pursue our self-interest even to the detriment of others. Because realistically speaking, you will at some point run into someone else's freedom or will or property, whatever you have. and it will rebound on you, or it's their property. In law, you have nuisance law, you have all sorts of things where water runs downstream, screws up somebody else's farm. You have noise that goes on somebody else's property, and now you got to find out the cops, or kill their dog or whatever, just to get them back. It's real life that your pursuit of what makes you happy, your pursuit of property will infringe on the rights of others. Where government comes in is that mediates between those people. Government makes laws that provide distinctions between property, that allow to have resolution between property. I think the natural response to that would be well, in a perfect parliamentarian society, we would have private organizations that arbitrate, mediate, so on and so forth. Realistically speaking, if you're poor, you're not going to be affording a mediator because they cost like $400 an hour. I can't afford a mediator, and neither can the person down the street from me. So private means of arbitration, they are notoriously expensive. Government does have certain virtues where it can help poor people, and that's borderline democratic socialist argument, but for the love of God, that's reality. Reality is your own self-interest. You're running somebody else who also has self-interest that conflicts with yours. Government is a way of mediating that. So I don't find anything Mr. Kokesh says objectionable. I just think that there are reasonable limitations that must be in place. And most people, fact of the matter is, they're not noble enough to restrain themselves. They're not noble enough to seek their own self-interest in a reasonable manner. That's just fact of the matter. So that's all I got to say on that.
I think Augustus is correct to point out that there are, as he would say, reasonable freedom. Those of us who believe in freedom as a principle, we call those the rights of others. Pretty simple concept. And I think it's a bit of a red herring to make an argument about protectionism based on dispute resolution. But I love chasing red herrings, so we'll go with it. This idea that somehow because government is needed for mediation is a justification for protectionism is ridiculous. Not just because the idea that government can and does provide mediation services is ridiculous, but because government by definition taking monopoly on mediation to whatever extent does is violating my right to choose who I interact with as a dispute resolution service provider. So if protectionism in general is something that is being done or advocated in order to avoid disputes, well, what happens when I have a dispute with government? What happens in my property in Arizona? I want to trade with someone on the other side of the world, and government comes in and says, no, sorry, you're going to have to tax on that, or a tariff, or no, you're just not allowed to because people on the other side of our imaginary line didn't fill out the right paperwork, didn't get the right license, and I say, well, I have a right to trade with this person. They're a free individual. I'm a free individual. We have no one else's rights violated in any way except ours by government. Who is going to resolve that dispute? Who is going to protect me from government? Who's going to protect my right to trade freely? Obviously, by having this idea of forced collective government in the first place, you lose the ability to exercise those rights to fully enjoy free trade, to fully pursue your own happiness. And I think this argument that, as Augustus points out, this is reality. No, this is the unfortunate, violent, destructive status quo that we live in. Those of us who care about freedom are trying to do something about.
Kokesh points out that the fact the government might mediation, if that were somehow a logical precedent to protectionism as an argument would be a ridiculous argument. I would have to agree. That's not at all what I was arguing. So I think what I was responding to more was Mr. Kokesh's talk about property rights. But if we are going to move into broader subject of free trade versus protectionism now, Mr. Kokesh says that government monopoly or dispute resolution is something that we're aiming for, with something that exists. That's an absolute falsehood. There is no such thing as government monopoly on dispute resolution. Even in cases where the government does have dispute resolution mechanisms in place, whether it's a criminal court or is showing up to your house, violence call, or is house mediation between lawyers. The fact of the matter is you don't need any of that. You don't have to call the cops on your friends and family. You don't have to call the cops on the guy down the street who vandalized your car. You don't have to call the cops on anybody. You could easily resolve all these things on your own. And the reason the government keeps growing is because people refuse to resolve their differences on their own. So I think probably be an absolute agreement that you should be resolving your differences on your own without government. No doubt about that. What I'm saying is that government does resolve. There are courts. Mr. Kokesh asks who's going to protect my right to trade freely, and it's certainly not the government. I would disagree. I think that government being in place does protect your right to trade freely. The fact that you are not scared to be assaulted by a band of robbers walk out of this hotel should probably be indicative of that. You can send your things on FedEx across Arizona, California, or Washington, wherever you want, and there's not going to be a band of thieves jumping out of the bushes to surprise that FedEx truck that it will go unpunished. We do have law and order, as much as we might think it's so oppressive because it is. The fact is that free trade is allowed in this country, and is viable in this country because we do have law and order. Because if someone were to rob an armored truck or a bank, there will be consequences for that. And if you don't have those consequences, then you cannot have free trade. The logical argument that would be, well, we should do that on our own. We should have vigilante groups. We should take care of this ourselves. Again, I'm 100% in agreement with that. If someone was selling heroin to one of my kids, I would kill that person. I would hang him from the highest lamppost in the neighborhood. And there's nothing the police could do about that. So if that's your approach to handling family matters, transgression of property rights, then I would agree with that. Most people can't do that, and so government is, again, necessary.
One more 3 minute on this?
Yeah. You okay, Charlie?
I don't think I really need that loss for this last one. I suppose if your concept of justice is killing someone for engaging in an act of free trade, you might have to look at what your principles of justice are a little more closely. While I certainly appreciate the sentiment that Augustus expresses and agree that better means of holding people accountable without government, it requires adherence to ethical principles that are viable. So to kill someone selling heroin is certainly disproportionate response, I would say, turning to government for solution services is. And I wouldn't dispute that government does resolve disputes. It helps poor people. Does lots of very nice things. But so does the mafia. And as for being afraid of robbers attacking me when I leave this hotel, as you all know, they call themselves the police. If you want dispute resolution services, they're the last people you should turn to by virtue of being agents of the state. They're clearly unaccountable to any actual standards of justice. And that is what you get when you abandon those core ethical principles in order to justify turning returning to the state for any kind of dispute resolution.
Alright, so
last one.
This one will probably be the most boring one
because I actually agree with one thing that Kokesh said.
As far as the government being compared to the mafia because it is an organization, I agree. As far as the band of robbers being the police, 100% agree. I can't tell you how many from my head right now. So 100% agreement with that. Oh, I disagree. Is that killing someone for free trade is a disproportionate response to selling a kid heroin. First of all, not consider selling a kid heroin an act of free trade. Consider that aggression against a family. And even if it were considered free trade, I think that would be justifiable homicide. I think most people would agree on that. Not that we're going for majority rules, but as far as being principled as you're protecting your family, certainly trumps a heroin dealer's right to sell his wares to children. So that's actually the only argument I have against anything you just said. So thank you.
Okay.
That's gonna be alright. So obviously it's the past.
So now we get to go on to some more some quicker subjects, hopefully some more fun ones. So I get to pick for the next one. Donald Trump versus Gary Johnson. If I said I hate to say I told you so, I'd be lying. Sometimes I really enjoy saying I told you so. I told you you were going to be disappointed with Donald Trump. I told you that he was unreliable and inconsistent. I told you that he couldn't be trusted. And before he is taken office, we hear the biggest campaign promises of his being broken. We're gonna drain the swamp. Oh wait, we're gonna go to the darkest parts of it, and hire nastiest people, the nastiest swamp creatures of Washington D.C. that we could possibly pack into a cabinet. We're gonna build a wall. Well, maybe not. What are the other big ones? Oh, right. We're gonna lock up Hillary Clinton. Let's see. Lock up Hillary Clinton. What would be the most possible diversion position from that? We're gonna help her heal. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't even We're rolling now. All right. I'd like to point out first of all that I chose my Donald Trump tie from his fashion line. So fuck you. Just kidding. I do like Donald Trump. He did make a cameo appearance in Home Alone 2. I don't know if you saw that. American Psycho is one of my favorite books of all time. Also one of my favorite movies. And for those of you who've seen the movie that have not read the book, let me tell you that Donald Trump is actually Patrick Bateman's idol. Little tidbit for you. Trivia you might want to share the next cocktail. So Donald Trump as American is apple pie, and I love that about him. I agree though that he trusted that he is unreliable, consistent as Mr. said. I mean, Democrat man is Republican. The fact that he is a businessman and ran on a national platform that should give you pause to consider what is going on. Right. On the other hand, I voted for him, and I am wearing his tie because Gary Johnson's a fucking tell you a fun story. Because I told you all the fun stories about Johnson endorsed my opponent in the Senate campaign. He didn't have a platform. Nobody knew who the hell he was. But he endorsed him for the fact that he was not me. So that should show you his level of political acumen, should show you his maturity, his decision-making skills. Probably because he smoked so much goddamn. I have absolutely nothing to say about Gary Johnson, except that he climbs crimes. Seriously, because I've never climbed a real mountain. I consider myself an athlete, that's out of my wheelhouse. So I give him props for that. But as a president, he would have worse than Clinton Nordstrom, because he is just. I don't even know what we're arguing about. Unless he's Johnson, that might be the end of that race.
I will proudly defend my former governor of New Mexico and not resort to ad hominems tonight. Ironic, thank you for pointing that out. I almost put Gary Johnson and Augustus Invictus in the same category of not quite libertarians. By the strictest definition, Sam Conkin. People who agree with me on absolutely everything. But in a serious sense, adherence to the core principles of libertarianism, self-ownership, voluntarism, non-aggression principle. And I have never supported Gary Johnson because of his philosophical grounding. I don't think he has one. Clearly, he's a man of integrity. He's a man who governed by his principles. Was shown that he's capable of guiding by his principles. I think it's very unfortunate that he was the nominee of the Libertarian Party that did not support him in the primary. I was looking for a candidate who would do more to wake people up into the core principles and bring about a paradigm. And I got to hand it to Donald Trump. In a sense, he did more to change how Americans think than Gary Johnson. Certainly more than Hillary Clinton did. I have to gladly concede that. But in terms of governing principles, what we would have. Governor Gary Johnson as president would be a lot closer to freedom. I'm not arguing that is an ideal that needs to be presented, but as a clear least evil, not evil option, as someone who claims to have principles ground wants to work towards more free society. Gary Johnson was clearly the candidate of principle in this past election. So I think if we're going to nominate someone for the Libertarian Party, we're going to get behind somebody 2020, obviously, I would throw in my hat into the ring as long as Kokesh for not president continues to grow and build, get momentum every single day. People realize that the best president is no president at all. We have the potential these ideas and with principles to change the world. And I think Gary Johnson was nominated. There are a lot of people in this party, this movement, who are afraid of these principles. The last thing I have to say on the subject, and I'll just turn the mic over to you for whatever you want to say on the subject in general. But there are a lot of people in this movement who've been around for a long time. Most of us are new. But people who have been here for a long time know what it's like to wake up when you really feel like you're the only one. And all of us know this to some extent, right? This is still a tiny movement. People who get freedom as an ethical concept, as a principle. I think we'd be lucky to proclaim of America of 3.2 something million. That's what we are. So it's very scary to see that, and feel alone. And it's very tempting to water down this message, to want to moderate our views. to say, well, we don't really believe in the idea of a stateless society. We want some form of institutionalized violence called government controlling us. We just want it to be socially awkward and fiscally liberal. That joke never gets old. Socially liberal, fiscally conservative. And I think the problem with a candidate like Gary Johnson is that he was nominated largely because people who believe in this message are afraid to come out with the pure message of philosophy, of the non-aggression principle, of self-ownership, of love, of harmony, of nonviolence. And when we speak from principle, that's when we have the potential to really grow this movement, wake people up, and move humanity forward. Thank you.
Well, I would agree. Johnson has no philosophical background to him. He saw that in the campaign. I said the same thing about Marco Rubio in my campaign. He has no. I mean, that's a little further than what Mr. Johnson is saying of Johnson. But you take someone like Marco Rubio, absolutely no principles. Just the quintessential slimy politician, the horse trader, the back scratcher. That's all I saw him as. Johnson's in a similar vein. He would flip-flop because he doesn't seem to believe in anything except in gay marriage and all the other things that everyone else already believes. So I'd have to agree with Mr. Kokesh on that, even if I am much harder on Johnson. Now, Mr. Kokesh says that what we have with Johnson and government would be a lot closer to freedom than anything we would have with Clinton or Trump. I would agree as far as Clinton is concerned. I would disagree as far as Trump is concerned. Only for the fact that the president is the sole organ of foreign affairs in our government. In the federal government, the president is the sole organ of foreign affairs. For us, when the Congress invited Netanyahu over here, in contradistinction to what Obama wanted, I thought that was a mistake because it completely undermined the president in that role. With someone like Johnson, who knows asking holding ground, making foreign affairs, we would have been laughing absolutely more than we would have been with Clinton or Trump. We would have invited invaders. It would have invited civil war. Because with an indecisive president who does not know foreign affairs, that is possibly the worst possible outcome you can have. While I may agree with him philosophically as far as being libertarian, I think we already screwed nominated when we nominated at the convention this year. Never done that. We had a different candidate. Maybe I would have voted for that person that I did support and lost. But we didn't. We nominated Johnson. That was a mistake. So I think Trump was certainly of the better, best candidate. I said it was clearly candidate of principle in this race. Mr. Kokesh does. I think that moves us from being deciders of the lesser of two evils, Democrat, and saying we should vote for us because it's libertarian because we are the least of three evils. So it's still the same argument. Just you got more people at the party. So those are my concluding remarks on that subject. Thank you.
Cultural Marxism. Let's open now. Instagram strategy. It's a cool.
Like I said, So this is the 1 minute script?
Yes.
Right? Yes. All right. So the topic of the evening is physical removal. There is no gains. It's just a broad topic that I get to start. having the same namesake as Augusto Filipino Che, I'm proud to start this discussion. As we all know, Pinochet used to throw people out of helicopters who he thought were Marxists. Huge alt-right movement to bring that. Queuing the helicopter. I had to speed read Papa's book, Marx of the Other Field, in order to come to this debate and sound educated. To be quite honest, I never read it before this past week. But that is where we get that in a libertarian society, you have to physically remove communists and Democrats, lest your libertarian society fall apart. I disagree with Papa fundamentally in that he believes that society is that which Mr. Kokesh has described. As far as there being a stateless society and everything based on private property, etc., I would disagree with that. But we do need to remove people from society, as I said, further in the debate concerning mass immigration. That's my position on the subject, and I look forward to the debate.
In terms of private property, physical removal, do whatever you want. It's your own property. But when it comes to this construct of society, is an excuse to remove people from other people's property, or from unclaimed property, or from government's collective property. Now you've got a different proposition on your hands. Now you're talking about an ethical violation. And this construct of society is used in many dangerous ways to pervert what would otherwise be direct ethical intellectual arguments. This construct of society, with the idea of a libertarian society, talk about that, isn't something defined by borders. It's a state of harmony. So to think that someone else other than on your property is doing something bad or advocating for something violent or anti-freedom, gives you the justification to go interfere and take their property based on their ideas or their advocacy. It's a very dangerous one. By the logic of Augustus here, if you're justified removing someone, threatening certain ideas, well, I think we'd be justified in physically removing for this, threatening our right to free exchange, by advocating for protectionism. We could make that case without any of his other positions that are pro-state, that are anti-freedom. So this idea of physical removal, again, you view it through the lens of private property, and the right to defend yourself. No problem with. But as soon as you pervert that disingenuously. I'm sorry anymore, D. I wish I could just go and maybe if I just go into like the Godfather voice, I'll be able to maintain a little more consistency and bring a little gravitas to the debate. But obviously this is a perversion of the that somehow while physical removal may be justified on ethical based on private property, by some construct known as society, it is now able to be applied where you don't have property rights. It's creating an excuse for a violation of ethics that is violent, and if you take it to its logical conclusion, makes it impossible to have a free society.
What I'm arguing for is a pragmatic approach to society. My understanding of Mr. Kokesh's position, I did watch all his debates. I read his book. It's right here. For free, it's right here. Just pick one up. In reading his material. Idealistic. Not in the term that young college student is idealistic because he hates his parents. In the sense that he has ideas, and that is something that is certainly lost in our society. And anyone who has ideas is somehow lumped into this category of or half reality or whatever. I don't think that's the case with Mr. Kokesh. It seems to me that he genuinely believes that this approach to going toward a stateless society libertarian society that is harmonious, people live in harmony, that we are progressing somehow toward this better society with technology, with the destruction of governments, and all else that Mr. Kokesh argues. I believe that is, and I would not negate. I don't believe, however, that it is realistic. And so what I'm arguing for is something more pragmatic. I do take the point that, as he said earlier, that a man of principle would argue that government is a necessary evil, is necessary, because it sounds a little counterintuitive to speak about principle, and then say evil is a fact that we need to recognize. But I think physical rule is also one of those things that we need to recognize in this world. The fact that you are going to have people in your society that do not like your society is a fact of life. If you had a child try to murder one of your other children, you would probably not be allowed to be in the house anymore. And you said, well, we're going to just get along and shake hands and go to therapy. I think that would be realistic to say. If you have 10,000 Syrian immigrants come over, and 500 or even 50 of them ISIS agents, I think when they start blowing things up, you might feel differently. We are progressing towards a more harmonization civilization. I would also point out in 1914, a lot of Westerners believed that we had progressed to a democratic age, Republican governments would be with, that warfare had trickled down to almost nothing, but professional fight with organized armies, and the things were really getting better. And then with the Great War, as they called it, that entire worldview fell apart. What I've been arguing this whole time is that it's about to fall apart all of you too. This notion that we have progress, that we are somehow more enlightened 100 years ago, I think that any day now, we're going to realize that our ideals of progress are starkly in contradiction to reality.
When I talk about the progress of humanity towards stateless society, based on an understanding of two things. One, that freedom requires non-violence. That an ideal stateless society is one of universal non-violence. You have the right to defend yourself, but if you have to defend yourself, it means that someone has violated or is to violate your freedom. When you understand as a freedom, as a state in which no one is forcing their will on you in any way, you can look at violence in a whole different light. And for the progress, the second thing is the very realistic work of Professor Stephen Pinker from Harvard University, who's not a libertarian, but has demonstrated, I would say irrefutably, statistically, that we are living in the most peaceful times in human history. You are less likely today than ever before to be subject to violence at the hands of another human being. What a beautiful thing to step back and celebrate and appreciate how far we've come from primitive roots. Go Team People! This is beautiful! Look at how far we've come! We are going to continue this progress, barring the caveats of nuclear war or the asteroid taking out this planet. It is the natural course of life, of humanity, of intelligence, of the free market to greater harmony. This is the progress towards a stateless society. The principles that I speak of are not just ethical or moral or spiritual. They are scientific, and economic principles that exchange is more conducive to human happiness than any kind of control or guiding society. And I'm so glad that you brought up principle versus pragmatism right there. Because you might as well have just conceded this whole argument. Principle, pragmatic, that's having principle. You do unprincipled things. You get impractical results. These are not competing ideas. It's not principle versus pragmatism. Principle and pragmatism go hand in hand. It is not very practical to be an unprincipled person. Sticking to principle is what leads us to a better life. Is what allows us to create a better world. Not to be swayed by the arguments of practicality, or any other argument that is being used to sacrifice your principles. Thank you.
You want to go with the strategy?
Yeah.
Skip ahead.
What am I going to happen next?
Oh, no.
I thought you guys touched on it.
We can't do it. On the subject of the non-aggression principle, I take the position of being for it. The non-aggression principle is the idea of self-ownership. Free, beautiful, independent human being. You own yourself. That's the reality of being an independent consciousness. You own the vessel of that consciousness. This is the foundation of the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle stated that it is unethical to violate an action that violates self-ownership. To me, this is the foundation of all principle of human interaction. If we want the most happiness and satisfaction for society, it would be by allowing people to pursue their self-interest and their rights as self-owning individuals. Anything contrary to some form of slavery, partial, subtle, anything than respect for the non-aggression principle is someone in some way claiming to own you, and I completely reject that.
Strangely, I'm also for the non-aggression principle. So we have the same basic thesis on this. I go by Wes Benedict's characterization of it that you don't hit people and you don't take their stuff. I think that's pretty good rule to live by. Something we were all taught in kindergarten, in our statist government-funded educational system. But I think it's pretty good rule. I wouldn't say anything against it. The only thing I have against the nap is that it has become state cult. It has made libertarianism something of an elitist, exclusive club, little club. If you don't like the nap, and you're not willing to sign off on it, then fuck you, get out of here. We don't like you. You cannot join. I don't know how many most people here, except for Mr. Kokesh, are from Florida. You might know this already, but you cannot join the Libertarian Party of Florida without signing that. That seems a little dogmatic. Affirming this dogma and swearing to it is holy writ. You cannot join our party. If you don't like that, and if you don't like that, then get out of here. Republicans don't have that. Democrats don't have that. Yeah, that is indicative that they have. I get that one. But at the same time, you're asking people to swear to this, or you can't join our little club. The problem with that really is that it's used as this passive-aggressive way to expel people from our little club whenever we disagree with them. So, for instance, the George Zimmerman case, which aroused a lot of emotions here in Florida, especially where I'm from, because I live right by Sanford. There was a guy in Central Florida who was running for state house who said that he didn't think what George Zimmerman did was wrong. It was self-defense, and you would think he said that we should go kill the Pope because they tried to expel him from the LPF like that. They said that is a violation of the non-aggression principle. Your belief is a violation of
the non-aggression
That
principle.
I take issue with.
Not hating people,
Not taking their stuff. I think we can pretty much all agree on that.
Well, your belief contradicts mine, and in reality, they violate the non-aggression principle, so get out of here.
I think is objectionable.
And that I would stand against.
Well, Augustus, I'm with you on that. I believe libertarianism is big tent. I want it to be inclusive. I don't want there to be any kind of reasons to reject people from participation based on any particular fine disagreements the application of the non-aggression principle. And you say that you endorse it, Augustus, I'll try to point out all the ways in which your positions are not consistent with the enforcement of any state's policy at some level requires getting people and taking their stuff. There's really no way around. You want borders? Well, what happens when someone crosses that border and says, I have a right to be here? You go and arrest them. You have to physically remove them. If they resist, you have to hit them. They own their body while you're taking their stuff. If you're going to find people because of protectionist policy, you're taking their stuff. You come up with an excuse to take their stuff. The non-aggression principle is elevated to a kind of cult status. Yeah, it has its consequences. And it has negative consequences for the movement. It does to make us less inclusive. And I think we should encourage anyone to share our principles or singular principle, if you will, to figure out how they want to apply that as consistently as possible. But if the non-aggression principle is simply a standard of ethics, then I'm a proud cult of the non-aggression principle. I am proud to say these are absolute ethical principles that should guide us and already are the default. You can ask a room full of statists. How many of you pointed a gun at someone to make money? How many of you stole something? How many of you hit someone on your way to work? Guess what? You're an anarchist. You didn't violate anybody's right. Respected the non-aggression principle. The basic foundation of an ethical society. If that's the case, then I am proud to say that the non-aggression principle should be held regard in such high regard. We should all be striving to apply it as consistently as possible. Can I get an amen? Amen.
I'm a preacher. Mr. Kokesh points out that my positions are inconsistent with the non-aggression. Goes down the line. Borders, physical, etc. Perhaps not. I'm not going to go down the line and prove to everybody why my positions are in accordance with this or not. The point is that these are things we should in a civil fashion. Kind of like we're doing right now. If this were the way that people debate whether our positions are in line with the non-aggression, whether they're not, people would sit down and say, I disagree with you about this, and here's why. Then I would have no problem. My problem is the way the party uses it to explain like Mr. Kokesh. I'm also carrying I ran my whole campaign. But to say that it's a cold thing, and then we're going to expel people, I would disagree with that. This night right here, between two much polar opposites in a lot of positions, should demonstrate to people how this sort of thing should take place. Not with expulsions and backbiting and Facebook comment wars and kicking people out of the Facebook people out of Slack and all the things the Libertarian Party has done in the past year and a half. So I just like to say thank you.
Should we move ahead to strategy? Specific topic. have maybe two rounds for this. Take as long as you want. Take as long as you want to present it, and then get a response. So the strategy for obtaining a libertarian society is our final specific topic debate tonight. Augustus, thank you for bringing that beautiful tone of cooperation. And being a part of this intellectual journey that we're all humanity is on right now, and together, and beautiful attitude that you bring to that. I really do appreciate. I think it's really important that we foster that attitude within this movement. So I'll hit my big points on strategy, which are first and foremost, the paradigm shift. Alexis de Tocqueville said, in a democracy, people will get the government they deserve. He's right. He's right. Short-sighted and narrow, and true about any society. A fascist society, socialist society, a free society. We get the government we deserve. Government monopoly is a monopoly on force. Is the manifestation of all of society's worst desires to control and dominate and manipulate our fellow human beings. We have to fundamentally change that. This is what I've shifted towards in my activism, having made every single mistake you could possibly make. The activist handbook. You want to learn how to be an activist? Look at my record to learn how not to do it. I had to go to jail to get to the point where I really deeply understood even my own message, and what I wanted to do with this, in terms of waking people up and shifting the paradigm. And there's a sort of simplicity almost to what we're talking about libertarianism as a consistent application of the non-aggression principle. People wake up to this. They don't go back to sleep. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of. To feel like at least in terms of politics, when you fully embrace libertarianism, you've gotten to the bottom of the rabbit hole. People don't figure out nonviolence, self-ownership, and then go back to statism. It's a one-way process of raising awareness. So since Augustus already beat me to it, I can get my shameless plug for the book. That's why I wrote Freedom. And for everybody on the internet, it's free. It's free in every digital format possible, including as an audiobook. It's free here tonight for you because enough people who believe in this message to make it possible for things like this. And I don't think that this is necessarily the silver bullet, but I know that the core principles expressed in this book in a very direct sense are essentially the silver bullet for humanity, statism. So how we share this message, how we wake people up, really is critical. Not just to say you're wrong and we're right, and here's why. And we can prove that doesn't motivate people. That doesn't inspire people. No one got here tonight. Someone was yelling at you about how right they were, and how wrong you were to be a statist. Some of us maybe got here because we had to be right about everything. We had to figure stuff out. We had to do the research. That consistent worldview for ourselves. But most people aren't like us. Most people, in some ways, don't have the luxury to indulge intellectually the way we do, to come to a debate on a weeknight and indulge in this kind of conversation. So it's absolutely critical. We make it not just as easy as possible for people to get this message, but as rewarding. It has been for us to embrace it. It's not rewarding to win Facebook because we get to win Facebook flame wars, or we get to piss off our families at Thanksgiving. It's rewarding for us. Because it is a powerful truth that we have embraced that has made our lives better. That at some fundamental level has happier people. Sharing freedom means sharing your joy. It means sharing the beauty of this message, the compassion of this message, the love for humanity that is behind this message. All behind all of our activism. You might have gotten here because you just wanted to be right about everything. But especially if you stuck around and you're still listening, my voice as it is tonight. It must be because you care something about something than yourself, because you want to see a world increased in its capacity for love and respect. I think it's absolutely critical that we stay true to that deepest part of our message in order to share it. So the second part of this, the practicality of achieving this ideal, is very simple. And this is where I say I could be wrong. I don't know that it's going to happen. I don't know that it's going to happen this way. But I know all the propositions I've ever heard for transitioning out of the statist violent world that we live in is localization. The opposite of globalism. The opposite of nationalism. Taking governments apart from the top down. Decentralizing power. Restoring power to our communities. It's unobjectionable when you present to people for the right reasons, out of that genuine love to make other people's lives better, you're going to make your world a better place. So it's very simple. We don't have to argue with people about should government this or should government that. All we have to convince people of they're better off. They feel they need to be governed locally by someone in a far-off capital. So when I say I want government localized, it's not just that I want to eliminate the federal and state governments, and then state governments, county governments, and then at the community level transition to the nonviolent government that will render government entirely obsolete. But that I want to see government all the way down to the divine individual.
Augustus, you can have 6 seconds. All right.
Yeah, we're in the non-time cash.
I'm about to get to my favorite topic. Good? All right.
So, Mr. Kokesh's
strategy for painting a libertarian society would be in two parts. One being a paradigm shift that he believes is necessary.
And the second being taking
governments down from the top.
I would agree that
paradigm shift is necessary.
The same speech I gave, a call for total last August, where I said that if you think one person in the Senate that is a libertarian is going to change anything, you are dreaming. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. What is needed is a cultural shift. You get that one person in there. What's going to do? The rest of America behind him, without people being so dissatisfied with government that they're going to actually support that person, hit up their own representatives to vote along with that person, introduce legislation in accordance with legislation. You don't have that kind of culture. You can get anywhere, even if you do magically elect one person to federal office. So I would agree with paradigm shift is necessary. As far as taking governments down, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Except that intergovernmental organizations such as the United Nations and any other sort of supranational organization they're trying to force down our throats. That would be primary. The reason I target our federal government of our country is because so much is players in that intergovernmental structure. All of the organizations we have in place, Security Council, NATO, anything you want to name, it all comes back to our federal government. I am that World Bank. We are behind all of that. We are behind. By we, of course, I mean the government. By we, of course, I mean the government. I do need to make that distinction. Thank you for making that point. Thank you for making that point. So I would agree.
that we do need to
take governments down from the top down. Part of the reason I am a nationalist is because I think that the governments that are being instituted above the federal government are the real problem.
The driving force behind that
is our own federal government.
I believe that's probably past my
1 minute. My own
thesis on this, on the strategy
for obtaining a deterrent society would be a little bit.
Mr.
Kokesh says in his book
that
Freedom
we should have an
that we
evolutionary
should have an
approach, not a
evolutionary approach, not a revolutionary
the violent revolution.
The violent
is not the way to go.
revolution is not the
I
way to go.
believe the exact opposite.
I believe the
And that is
exact
perhaps
opposite.
one of our
And
biggest
that is perhaps one of our biggest differences.
I believe that a small, dedicated minority
is far more important to overthrow this government, dismantling governments from the top down,
reorganizing society, however you want to phrase it.
however you want to
Small
phrase it.
dedicated minority
A small dedicated minority is certainly more powerful and more effective than achieving a critical mass
movement,
and having a mass
because
movement.
you're going to have to have
Because you're
media
going to have to have
you're going
media
to
on
have
your
to have
side,
parties
you're
on
going
your
to have
side,
major
you're
parties on your side,
financial
you're going to
interests on your
have
side,
financial interests
all
on
the
your
special
side,
interests,
all the special interests that control our federal government, get them all on your side in order to get this critical mass, and that's not
the
going
best
to
you can
happen.
hope for is
The
having
best you can hope for is having a vanguard
take the lead,
that will take the lead,
and they may not have
have
the sanction of the American
American
and that's
people.
fine. That's the way
And that's fine.
revolutionary
That's the way
movements
revolutionary
go.
movements go. That's how it went for Mao. That's how it went for Lenin.
Our
That's
own
how it
founding
went
fathers.
for our own founding fathers.
They were all revolutionaries.
They were all revolutionaries. They all had the same problem. How to build a republic when you are attacking the very thing that feeds them.
My strategy
would be
hang
to hang all of the reserves of the Federal Reserve and putting all the corrupt politicians up against the wall and executing them.
And I'm not joking about
And I'm not
that. That is
joking
dead serious.
about that. That is dead serious.
If you want anything
to change in this country, you need to start putting heads on
anything
pikes.
less than that, they're not going to take you seriously.
That's
why I always tell people.
That's why I always tell people to
prepare yourselves for the eventuality
that the government is going to come after you for preaching about
They
freedom.
will protect their
interests with everything
and the
they
only
have.
way they're going to take you seriously,
And the only way they're going to take you seriously, the only way they're
listen
going
to your vote,
to listen to your vote or you're whining on Facebook is that they think you are an actual threat.
And right now they do not think
you or anyone else in
as
America
a congregate
as a
is
congregate is a threat.
And that is the major
paradigm shift we need to have if we're going to be a free citizenry.
I also believe we need to
burn down
all media
stations. I am notoriously hateful to all journalists, which
may or may not have
resulted
in all of you
resulted in all of you knowing Because if you start attacking journalists, let me tell you, they don't take that shit lightly. They go after you. But on a serious note, the media stations all need to burn.
Dead serious.
Because dead serious. If you are going to have a revolution in this country, the media is going to have the public against you every step of the way.
You invaded Hungary.
It's
going to make the news as people go sacrificing white supremacists just took it on. And by the way, they're butt fucking everybody in that room. And they're going to use this armory. They're going to use everything in here to blow up daycare centers. They will say anything they can.
They will say anything they can in the media.
So if you want public on your side, probably the first thing you need to do is neutralize that does control public opinion. No matter how you feel about private enterprise, or corporatism, or anything else. It is a real fact that the media stations in this country control public opinion, like a farmer with whole grain in his hand. Violence may not be the answer, but it is certainly necessary. The people lording over you, know nothing but violence. They understand nothing but violence. You cannot reason with a robber who has a gun to your head. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I'm not taking that chance. And I would recommend that none of you do either.
Well, I'm really glad to get to make a rebuttal to the concept of violence, to the concept of violent revolution. But we not only have principle, but statistics to back up the concept of nonviolent revolution. I'll start with a quote from John Lennon. The establishment irritates. Pull your beard, flick your face. Make you fight because once they've got you violent, they know how to handle you. The only thing they don't know how to handle is nonviolence and humor. More importantly, on the topic of statistics, violent versus nonviolent revolutions. And forgive me for jumping in with a quote here that's in the middle of a story of how a couple of researchers came together on this topic from Psychology Today. Chenoweth and her colleague painstakingly collected on 323 violent and nonviolent political campaigns since 1900. They counted a campaign as successful if the goal had been achieved within 1 year. And when Chenoweth started out, she was fairly certain that the violent political campaign would be more likely to accomplish their goals. But she was wrong. The startling results are depicted in the attached figure. As you can see, non-violent campaigns have a 53% success rate, and only about a 20% rate of complete failure. Things are reversed for violent, which were only successful 23% of the time, and complete failures about 60% of the time. Violent campaigns succeeded partially in about 10% of cases, comparing unfavorably to nonviolent campaigns, which resulted in partial successes over 20% of the time. So why does this work? It is essential to understand origins of violence itself, the nature of interpersonal violence and human conflict, but of state violence in particular. Every class, governing institution relies on the consent of the governed to support an enforcement class of soldiers, officers, and police officers to do violence against peaceful people. If you have a violent minority up against that force, still supported by the general population, you will lose every single time. They must always muster more men, guns, and more bombs, and more people will die, and suffer, and you will lose. A nonviolent revolution is not only ethical, more likely to succeed. It is more likely to succeed and goes right to the heart of the problem. Violence is supported by the paradigm of the society that supports. It is not a violent majority that is defeated by another violent minority. The violence is rooted government in the general population. If you want to change that, the general population not with violence, but with civil disobedience, with withdrawal of the support of that violence. If you want a movement of violent men, angry young march off to die themselves against the barricades, you can have a violent revolution. I would much rather build a movement. You can call it a revolution. In certain phases, certain steps towards progress. But it is an evolutionary movement that includes everyone in society, not just those
who are capable of violent resistance. We are all capable of withdrawing from our consent and from violence. And that is how you fight fire, not fight fire with fire, no, fight fire, fight violence with love, violence, with love and compassion and connectedness.
Mr. Kokesh quotes
an empirical study done
about the difference between nonviolent campaigns and violent campaigns, their various success and failure rates. Quite admittedly unfamiliar with that. So I can't argue against it. I would normally ask where you get that study. If this were a real Oxford debate, I would just attack the source because that's what you do. That's what you do in law. That's what you do in
I'm not going to use. I will just admit that is probably true.
Let's just say it is.
Let's just say it is, for the sake of argument.
I don't typically base anything on whether it is statistically probable or statistically improbable.
Actually, most of the things that I have attempted in my life have been statistically probable that I would die doing it.
And that's just how
that's how you
things
happen.
achieve
That's how you achieve
anything.
Most people in revolutionary movement understand that they will certainly die, and that they will certainly die if they do not achieve their objective.
I would also argue,
not from an empirical standpoint, but from an
that might not be as scientific,
but that is the way of the beast.
Anecdotally, the American Revolution,
whether it's chances of success or failure,
the fact is that it was a violent revolution.
They did
eventually we did have a Republican,
and eventually we did have a Republican form of government in this country.
That being said,
no one
is going to pretend that the American
Revolution
that somehow in 1776 they signed this Declaration of Independence,
that was the magical
offshoot of the revolution turned out the way we know it today, just because of that document was signed on July 4th or a couple days after. The fact is that there were 30 years before that of pamphlets being printed. There were people doing exactly what Mr. Kokesh is doing, going around preaching independence, saying we need to be independent from this crown. This is egregious. Look at all the abuses that this king has heaped upon us. You could do the same thing without
federal government.
In fact, one could argue that
the abuses of King George were absolutely minuscule compared to what our federal government does to us.
And it's like that frog
in the frying pan sort of metaphor,
it's been going on so slowly,
we were all born into it. So you do need that paradigm shift before you understand what exactly your federal government is doing to the citizenry in this country.
I think we are at that point.
Now where most people already realize that there are abuses in this country.
The question is, are you
dissatisfied enough to do something about it?
Eventually, there had to come along
someone like Thomas Paine, who eventually said,
it's time. Bitching about this for 30 years.
Someone needs to take this up.
If not us, then
who?
If not now, then when?
I think that time
is right now,
and someone has to pull the trigger on this thing.
Unintended.
Unintended.
I'd just like to make one quick point in rebuttal, and then however you want to do closing remarks. If the objective of the American Revolution was to overthrow the crown, it was successful. The objective of the American Revolution to create a free society, or even a more free society, it is clearly abject failure. The reason is born of violence. It continues to be an institution that we live of violence that we live under today. The American Revolution, in that narrow regard, was successful. I think it represented a major step forward for humanity, even away from monarchy. However, it was not in the long run towards a step towards a greater standard of ethics.
it did not have that. And it led to us having a greater form of central control. The seed of cancer planted of the American Revolution, the idea of violent central control that has gotten to the totalitarian state we live under today.
Who goes last?
We'll let him have it. We'll let him have it.
Who wins this round?
Okay.
Who wins this round?
So, closing remarks.
Let's do it.
Well, first, thank you all for being here. Thank you for putting up with my voice tonight. I hope it's been fun. Thank you to Lewis for making it possible for everybody who helped organize for everybody who helped in the work to help move humanity forward. It's been an awesome tonight and conversation tonight, and I'm truly honored your participation in this justice. I'm truly honored by the spirit in which these conversations have engaged in this conversation. I'm truly honored to have attention of so many people here tonight and online who are enjoying this exchange of ideas. As Augustus put it better than I could, are critical, advancing the conversation one way or another. A lot of what I do, forgive me for the off-the-cuff nature of this. I didn't realize in the course of this debate that we would get to such deep critical topics, talking about violence and revolution. I'm really glad the way that we have. I'm really glad that the conversation went that way. But I want to speak why I do what I do, in hopes that that reason might encourage you to find a deeper reason to be engaged with this cause, and with this message as well. For those of you that don't know my background, I was in the Marine Corps. Did 6.5 years as a reservist, about 3 years of active duty time within that, including a tour in Fallujah in 2004. And I went to Iraq to help people. I was against the invasion. I was pro-occupation because I thought that what we were doing was cleaning up our mess. And I genuinely went there and volunteered to go in civil affairs. Because I wanted to help people. And I ended up doing some truly horrific things while I was in Iraq, including torturing people. In a way, I consider my activism a penance for unforgivable sins. That's not healthy. It really isn't. It's one of the things right now I'm working to get past. Because I know when we wake up, come out of military background, about facing the horrors of war, the greatest crime of government, leads you to really want to deeply question government. The nature of government makes you want to understand that violence. When you've seen people die unnecessarily, you can't help but want to do something about that to make sure that it never happens again. My start in activism was with the Iraq Veterans Against the War. And I started off as an angry veteran. Really pissed off. I was really pissed off about how I was lied to, and how I was taken advantage of. But I don't just mean in terms of Iraq War or my deployment or anything like that, but in terms of militarism and statism in general, that makes it possible that signing up to kill for politicians is a noble thing. And I've gone through 10 years of activism. I would hope a significant transformation. As much as I appreciate hearing, hey, your videos woke me up. My worldview. Your book changed my worldview. The kind of feedback that I get now is so much more deep and meaningful. When people say, "Wow, Adam, I really appreciate how you've changed. I really appreciate how you've changed. I really appreciate how you've grown. How you've grown. I really appreciate how you faced your own demons. God from what I would describe as that angry veteran. The guy who just wanted to be right about everything. To where I am now, I just want to share this message. I want to share the love of freedom. Wanting to share the love of freedom. Wanting to share the compassion and the empowerment that comes and the righteousness that comes with this message as properly understood. And I'm not there. There's no end to this. There is still a measure of violence in my heart. There is still a temptation. To violent retribution. To wanting to fight fire with fire. But this transformation that we're talking about for the world, for society, is not a political one. I like to talk about this as an anti-political message and the anti-political movement. But it's not defined, and it cannot succeed to define it if we define it as what it is against as opposed to what it is for. It is for freedom. It is for love. It is for compassion, connectedness, and moving past our violent ways. That we are ready to go beyond. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for being a part of this conversation tonight. Part of this movement. Thank you for being a part of this movement. And thank you honoring me the way that I see. We are all coming together. To help move humanity forward. Thank you very much.
Nothing I have to say will be nearly that moving. Thank you. Like to thank ACT and Study Better for putting this together. Very much, man.
Louis called me.
Louis
He said, "Hey man, I've got this idea."
I think it'd be really cool.
He came to our party and circled and debated out of Kokesh,
and I just stopped at Kokesh, and I just stopped at.
Yeah, that's
Pretty hard.
That would be awesome, man. It's never
That would be awesome, man. It's never gonna happen. He's like, no, actually. That blew me away. Thank you again. So thank you again. I know it's thank you several times standing up here, but thank you for coming out and doing this, man.
Most people in this movement,
certainly in Florida, won't be in the same
boat as
me.
My opponent
in the Senate race, rather than ever was a debate, he literally would not be in the same room.
Public fact,
That is
everybody knows that.
public fact. Everybody knows that. He's a spineless. So
give
Mr. Kokesh all the credit.
I respect him far more.
Than I did my opponent.
I'd like to also thank Liberty Hangout.
Liberty Hangout actually endorsed me in the Senate campaign, and they are streaming this live, and video will be up later. My friends Justin and James are working there, so thanks to them, and thank you too.
As far as my background is concerned,
I'm an attorney in Orlando, Florida. I do criminal defense.
Also a writer.
My father of 4 children. My 5th child will be born in March.
I studied leadership.
I studied leadership at Rollins when I was in the MBA program. I am now
Studied leadership.
Studied at Rollins when I was in the MBA program. When I was in the MBA program. I'm now banned from Rollins.
He said that they're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, okay.
You hear me better now?
So I'm banned from Rollins for life. That's one of my proudest achievements. I studied international law. I studied international law at the Pole in Chicago. The Pole was one of the institutions that called the FBI on me a few years ago. It's also one of my proudest achievements. Studied philosophy at USF. Studied philosophy at USF before that, which is actually one of the only organizations that has never tried to blacklist me or ban me or have me in prison. Have me in prison. I love USF. So I love USF. That's my whole life for life. I have, however, been expelled from my own. I have been removed. I have been removed from charity boards. I've been trespassed from my own offices and even my own residence. They did try to kick me out. They did try to kick me out of the Libertarian Party of Florida. It just brought to my attention that apparently what I said earlier about Franklin Perez in Central Florida. I didn't mean to say he was kicked out. I didn't mean to say he was kicked out. I said they tried to kick him out. So if there was any confusion about that, I apologize. They tried to kick me and Franklin, both instances. Completely different incidences, and we actually don't like each other at all. So different circumstances, but what I meant to say is they tried to kick me out, just like they tried to kick me out with the witch hunt that they did last October. That was a total fiasco. But I've been kicked out of places. All over the country. I've been kicked out of Canada. I've been kicked out of whole countries at this point. And it's not because I'm in murder. That I set things on fire. That I set things on fire. That I smell bad. The entire reason these things keep happening is that I'm an extremist. A political extremist, certainly. And that is perhaps ironically why, in contradistinction to Mr. Kokesh, I do believe that government is necessary. Because I've seen human organizations. I've seen all sorts from top to bottom. And I've seen the weakness. Of each of man. In each of these. I've seen it private and in government organizations, tribes, families, countries, nations, countries, law enforcement, law firms, criminal enterprises. I've seen all of these things, and the golden thread tying these things together is that they are all human organizations, and they are all corruptible. And that is because man himself is corrupt. So this notion that when we rid ourselves of government, somehow the nobility of man is going to shine forth is an absolute falsehood. That will never happen. Because man is what he is, and any organization that establishes that is going to come out. We should not seek to abolish the very notion of government, but rather to restore the notion of nobility, which is a long lost virtue in our culture. My mission is not to destroy this republic and burn everything down and be hateful and all that. My entire mission is to restore the republic and to restore what America is. And I realize this is not a speech or the Senate campaign or anything like that. But that is, I think, the crux behind everything that we've argued about tonight, or debated, rather. We haven't been arguing. And I think that's a good picture of where I'm coming from. I've already thanked everybody who's put this on and participated. But thank you all too. Trying to assassinate me, not heckling me, because that happens too. Throwing things.
We still have Q&A.
We still have Q&A. Thanks for listening to this point.
Received one of the AFF pens. Anybody? The AFF pens. Anybody? Do you have them with them? We're actually going to use them to vote. So whoever's interested in voting debate as to who won the debate, we're going to use the pens as a tally. So we'll put them in a box, or one for Kokesh and one for. All right with that? You guys are all right with that? All right, cool. So.
All right, cool.
So the
So
way I was thinking about doing it,
the way I was thinking about doing it,
I'll step outside and we'll physically
I'll step outside and give you guys a pen, and then we put it, you know, in one box, as I said, for Kokesh, and one.
obviously you guys start staying
obviously you guys start staying in here.
and then I'll count.
And then I'll count them and let you know about the results. You have a question?
Why don't we put the 2 boxes outside, and then we might move as a conveyor belt, you know, and go out and go back.
No, it's a good idea, but I like mine a little better. So. What?
The live stream
Well,
comments, they all.
about that live stream audience.
About that live stream audience.
I heard you guys couldn't hear Gus.
I heard you guys couldn't hear Gus.
Justin has a poll.
So on Liberty Hangout,
there's a poll,
and
and
human, you guys can
I guess
also have a
Emancipated
poll.
Human, you guys can also have a poll.
And close it whenever you guys would like.
And
It's
close
up
it
to
whenever you guys would like. It's up to you guys.
If you're gonna ask me, say who I thought
Not
won.
that I'm going to say who I thought won.
But I will say this is how you determine
But I will say
who
this is
won an
how
actual
you
debate.
determine who won an actual
Obviously,
debate.
we don't have this.
Obviously, we don't
pseudo-debates
have
that you
this
see in
the pseudo debates that you see in the Republican
parties.
or the Democratic parties,
which are basically,
which are basically, he's a racist,
he's a misogynist,
he's a misogynist, or you know, whatever it is. That's just
obviously that's silly.
That's just
I would
silly.
base
So
my decision.
I would base
on the
my
following.
decision
As you
on
saw,
the following. As you saw,
both intellectual
intellectual
stated their
pugilists
thesis, and then they
stated their
buttressed
thesis, and then they buttressed.
So
this
how to
thesis.
expose
how to
somebody's
expose
position as it
somebody's
being wrong
position as
is
it
the
being
following
wrong
way, as I understand.
is the following way, as I understand
You-
it, right?
First of all, you make sure that you guys are on
Make sure that
the same page
you
as
guys
far
are
as
on
terms or
the same page as
definitions.
far as terms or
Right.
definitions
So I
go.
think Kokesh
Right?
emphasizes
That's why I think Kokesh emphasizes definitions. That's one of the first steps when it comes to an actual debate. Hope they can hear me.
Getting
but-
trolled, by the way.
I noticed I had a brown shirt. I was like, brown shirt. I totally. But no, I'm an ANCAP. But no, I'm an ANCAP.
Anyway, back to this. Back to
Back to
what I
this.
consider
Back
somebody-
to
how
what I
make a
consider
strong
somebody-
argument.
how to make a strong argument.
Is the
Sound
following way.
argument.
You
Is the
guys
following
make
way.
sure
You
have the same
guys make sure
definitions, right?
you have the same
there's a certain word you
definitions,
guys
right? So there's a
accept-
certain word you
accept
guys
each other's definitions.
accept each
Then
other's
you
definitions.
try to
Then you
apply.
try
Let's say
to
somebody has
apply. Let's say somebody has
So you
states
apply
out
that
of logic.
logic
So you apply that
into the
logic
views of your opponent.
into the views
Right?
of your opponent.
And their own
right?
logic, your
and
opponent's
if their own
logic
logic, your
doesn't
opponent's
hold,
logic doesn't
once
hold,
they apply it to their
once
other
they
views,
apply it
then
to
they're
their other views,
inconsistent, and
then
you're
they're
exposing them.
inconsistent and you're exposing them.
So now I'm forgetting. Maybe you guys can help me. We have a smart audience.
Maybe you guys can help me. We have a smart
We're not in
audience
the
here.
libertarian party.
We're not in the libertarian Sorry, that was a little blow. I apologize.
So there's
Ad absurdum.
There you go. Thank you, Robert.
So
one way of doing this is
one way of exposing your opponent's position is using a reductio ad absurdum.
You guys can look it up. I'm not intelligent.
You guys can look it up. I'm not intelligent enough to come up with an example.
But anyhow, if you guys can all step out the alternatives.
You already heard the alternatives. So
Intimidating.
Kind of
If you guys want to step out,
intimidating.
if you guys want to step out, give you guys a pen.
We'll
which is
determine
which box. Let you guys
which
know.
box.
And
Let
then
you guys know.
Take up
And
Italian,
then
and then there's
take
the
the
online.
Italian, and then there's the
poll.
online poll as well.
Would you like to take questions while that's happening?
How about when they
when they come all back,
Q&A
Q&A
now.
now. Or should we do Q&A now?
While it's happening, so.
How do live stream ask
Yeah, you want to field those questions?
You want to field those questions, Danny Martinez?
Yes. So we'll do this. So we'll do
Make sure
this.
you get both.
And make sure you get both Emancipated Human as well as Liberty Hangout.
Oh, I just want to give a few facts.
Before I forget.
All right. I'd like to thank, obviously, Emancipated Human,
Luis Fernando, aka Mises,
great guy, and thank you so much.
great
for
guy,
letting
and
us
thank you
live
so much
stream.
for letting us live stream.
Also thank the guy from Liberty
Also
Hangout,
thank the guy from
Justin
Liberty
Muldo,
Hangout, Justin Muldo. I hope I pronounced that right. Danny Martinez. Danny Martinez, right here with me. Yeah, Jared Howard, I think is on. Jared Howard, I think is on backwards, right? Oh, James, yes, James. Oh, James, yes, James. Thanks a lot, James. I can't pronounce your last name, so I'm going to try. Embarrassed myself enough already. And then the people here, thank you so much. And then the people here, thank you so much. I apologize for being late. I apologize for being late. Thanks also, Alexander Mask. Alexander Mask. There's other people that helped me. There's other people that helped me. Anyway, field your questions online. Danny's gonna field your questions online. I'll keep you guys open.
We can sit here and share the mic for whatever questions and just keep it quick and casual here.
So what we're going to do is we're going to actually have some online questions, and I have some questions here. So have some questions here as well. Take both. All right. So who wants to ask the first question in here? If you want, you come up here, and then you can actually. If you want, you come up here, and then you can actually all hear your speak into the mic, so we can all hear your question.
Seems that through the dialogue there was
Andrew, speak in the mic. Andrew, speak in the mic.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should probably expand upon as a community. It seems that the entire libertarian community is fractured. I think a good question to approach is actually what we're talking about. It's actually what we're talking about with the revolution of national action. Many society actually require revolution by a very small minority. If you look at principles of now, war, if you look at war, the United States did not get involved, or anyway did, we still got defeated anyway, we're much smaller force, larger force, we have a much larger force, very small. Government, in any case, even if you look at actually Hitler, if you were to take away, for instance, Germany's Republican voting system, you would actually have revolution because the Hitler earned about 30% of the vote, which was 40 to 60% of people actually voted for the Marxists. And of course, there were Marxists that were going to overthrow the government anyway. Russia. Most societal changes come from revolutions like very small. And I think that's something that both of you just decided a little more, just because the biggest turning points in history come from very, very small rising up people rising up and trying to take hold of society.
If I can get to the first part of what you said, about I think I've said my point. I agree that it's an important subject to talk about boldness today. Talk about boldness to the heart of a lot of really does get to the heart of a lot of differences that we find amongst ourselves within this. I won't argue against revolution, having had some positive events at some time. But I've done research for myself. And I know that eventually everybody does. Eventually they'll come across some revolution. I really respect that. I really respect how you replied to my position no. That's from my research. That's from my research. You know, and as I've always said, because nobody wakes up they were wrong because someone told them they were wrong. They figured out for themselves because they figured out for themselves in terms of principle and disregard in terms of principle and violence versus nonviolence as meditate on it, as people meditate on that, as the roots consider that, as the roots through the same process that I went through. I was Augustus similar to Augustus just a few years ago. Really just a few years ago.
So
say you wanted to respond, and then we'll go back to the revolutionary part. As far as pragmatism versus principle, I'm actually in agreement with that. Like I said, we should never have nominated Gary Johnson. I think we totally sold out. I think we've done that convention, and I think we've done that time and time again. We've done a lot of things where we said, well, we're going to sacrifice principle on this occasion. We're going to sacrifice on this occasion. We're going to sacrifice principle on this occasion so we can get more federal funding, or this or that, or media polls, or nominated Bill Weld so that we can get in all of these sacrifices. And we've made all of these sacrifices. Yeah, and the money. Fundraising, polls, whatever it is that we sacrifice principles for that. I vehemently disagree.
Paul Stanton is actually commenting on the actual debate right now. I thought he was dead.
But the difference between sacrificing principle for pragmatism, as far as the party is concerned, I think it's a completely different affair from talking about real politics and international relations. So I don't think that it's principle to say, well, we should do this, that, or the other in accordance with libertarian principles when there's someone trying to invade us, or when the power structure of world governments is inclined against us. Real politics is something that has absolutely nothing to do with morality. To state it blankly, it has nothing to do with principle. Real politics is all about preserving your nation. And if you recognize that fact, you recognize you have to be pragmatic about politics in that sphere. But as far as Libertarian Party is concerned, I do agree we should stick with the second part of what your question was, as far as revolutionary movements and small minorities. I'm actually in agreement with you, and I know Mr. Kokesh disagrees with both of us about it. I don't have much more to add about it, except that even in your examples, where there were non-violent takeovers, like in the instance of Hitler, he was voted into dedicated minority, but it was a small dedicated minority. And Hitler talks a lot in Mein Kampf about achieving that critical mass, masses of people by oratory, but really, when you look at it, it was a small party that he expanded over time, but that small dedicated minority did take over Germany. So whether it's violent or non-violent, I do believe that you should focus your attentions on developing that small core, not on watering down your message to get more and more people behind your banner.
Perfect. We have an online question from Matt Sweeting. If the United States or any of the individual states, countries or cities, you were the owners of one of these pieces of property, how would you manage it?
So like if California was elected president, because Donald Trump was elected president, Adam Kokesh dictator for life, what would I do? I would retire. I'm actually surprised the debate tonight didn't get into very much, or property rights very much, or property legitimacy, subscribing generally to the Lockean concept of natural resources and labor with natural resources, acquisition of property, or acquisition of property, or one I love what I'm doing in Arizona right now, homesteading a property creating space out of comfortable dirt and space out of the dirt and comfortable right now it's more dirt than comfortable living. But the question would be, I would say in response to that question, I would have property make the same thing to property. It would be the same thing. Platform for a presidential campaign. Eliminate three parts of government: the executive, judicial, legislative, and no judicial. I would quit and go home and get a real job.
The United States. So the question is, if the United States or a state in the U.S. or a city became private, and I was made owner
of that territory, what would I do?
Yeah, well, how would you manage it?
I don't even know how to answer that. I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, my entire point is that there has to be common property, and government has to exist because I would like to maybe it's the same question. It's the same question as, well, if you owned a company, how would you act? I mean, I would my entire leadership strategy. My entire leadership strategy is to allow them tasks, allow them to fulfill those projects on their own without micromanagement, without looking over their shoulder. And you let people be who they're going to be. And I think that's actually the same concept as right government, is you leave people alone. Minimal government is always going to be best, assuming we agree on the basic sense that there has to be a government. Minimal government is always going to be best because it allows people to create as any corporation. But that's the same as any corporation, too.
I have a question from Gregory.
I have different questions for you guys. My first one to Augustus is what are your thoughts on Frederick Nietzsche, and what are your thoughts on Adam? What are your thoughts on Macy Tomlin?
How much time do we have?
I actually have Nietzsche tattooed on my arm, but not his face, but a line from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, that man is something that must be overcome. It's actually been my favorite book since I was 14 years old. I've grown up on Nietzsche. I could not imagine my life without his philosophy. My thoughts on Nietzsche. Where do you even begin with that? Where do you even begin with that? I think about Nietzsche. The most important thing about Nietzsche for me is the entire idea of man being something that we are not overcome, that we are not the end of evolution, but also that evolution is not necessarily adaptation to circumstance. Evolution is the will to power, the will to become something more than you already are. It is the most pure form of overcoming. It's self-overcoming. And like Nietzsche says in that same book, life is that which must always overcome itself. So this idea of overcoming, of progress in a real sense, because it is evolutionary. It is evolutionary. That, I think, is the most important aspect of Nietzsche.
No comment. No comment.
Talk about the contract, man. Come on.
You want to answer the question? Go ahead. You want to answer the question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so did she write that contract, and is she just talking shit about you being an abusive boyfriend?
Come on, man.
We're going to move on to the next question.
No, it's fine. She wrote the contract. It's been published. Fine. It's been made public. It's fine. You can decide for yourself. About her statements and evaluate them on your own. I think that's fine.
So you don't have a response to her claims that you're an abusive boyfriend?
Based on what? Based on her on her claims.
Video on Facebook.
Sure, you can make what you want. You can make what you want. You're open to judge my personal life. You're open to judge my personal life however you like. I've made my response for it. I've made my response for it. You can watch my video.
We're going to move on to the next question.
Hello, this question's actually more or less aimed towards Adam. Let's say we were able to develop our own ANCAP society, and let's say that it was roughly the size of the United States. How would we deal with the whole nuclear stockpile and let's say we somehow destroy them all, and some jerk tried to build his own nuclear arsenal, like on his own private property, and tried to use that to threaten other people with it. How would you?
That's a great question. I think it's the most important. That's a great question. I think it's the most important platform of abolishing the entire federal government. The very first thing we do is cut more nuclear weapons pointed at our fellow. No more nuclear weapons pointed at our fellow. We have no reason to. We have no reason technology have that. Technology is necessary, dangerous. It is unnecessary. It has no legitimate means of serving humanity whatsoever. As for the question of in a free society, what do you do? Taking on about someone taking on the nuclear weapon position that requires around buying them to create something around to create something so destructive, at least
weapon, if you want to create a nuclear weapon, government scale needs a government scale of corporations behind you. That requires a certain social consent. That requires a certain social consent. So as I see it, the elimination of institutions of government changing the paradigm would include no one would change the paradigm, that no one would support the development of nuclear weapons. No one would support them. You wouldn't have nuclear weapons to do that. You wouldn't have that broader support. You wouldn't have actual broader support. It would actually be a paradigm that possible with a paradigm that embraces self-ownership. Hey guys, why don't you all help me build this device? Why don't you all help me build this device that's going to save time? Kill, you want to help me out with that? It's not going to help me out with that. It's not going to happen. If someone somehow was able to create such a large destructive force, individually, they would quickly be cut off ostracized. They would be cut off economically in a way that would make them incapable of deploying that technology. You want to comment on nukes? You want to comment on nukes? Like nukes? This is at the point of this also allows for the possibility of development. It also allows for the possibility of development of nuclear technology for non-organized purposes in a way that is in accordance with human needs and market demand.
Just a reminder to everybody online. You could actually ask some questions on it. I will ask Adam or Invicus the questions, but we'll move on here.
So I have what? All right. I have the question. All right. I have the question. It's my personal belief that I truly believe that we are all, we come into this world alone. We come into this world alone, and we leave alone, and we take no one with us. We just come and make it alone, and we do just the same way. My question is, ideologically, can we make on our own and only on our own, in order to make the different or the impact that the two of you have spoken about in our present society depend on those who are around us to get to where we want to be with our potential purposes. So that was my first question. Two.
I would say that the most important aspect of leadership is leading by example. You don't have to manipulate people around you. You don't have to taskmaster them. You don't really have to force them to do anything. It's like Napoleon said, he was surprised at how little force accomplished anything. I think that the biggest part of changing the world around you, any kind of change, instituting any kind of change, is to be that person, and to live the virtues that you were preaching. Because you're talking about this, that, or the other society, and you're not living in accordance with that, everybody's going to know real fast how full of shit you are. So I think that leading by example is first and foremost what you can do. You don't have to force anyone to pay attention to you or not pay attention to you. If they like the lives that you live and the person that you are, then they will also come to cherish those values, and I think that's how you really change things.
I'm really glad you mentioned that point about being alone. The way that you did, because it's been heavy on my mind lately. There's this, and is anybody a fan of the School of Life? Is anybody a fan of the School of Life? They have a great video on. They have a great video on. Have you seen it? It's about nature of life. It's the nature of life. Like the way you did it was just like almost a perfect summary of their video on that topic. It's something that is really important to accept. It's really important to accept as a feature of the alone in our own heads. That we are alone in our own heads. Be as intimate as you can ever be as intimate with someone else as you can be with yourself. That's something that we seem to resist a lot. Something that we seem to resist a lot. Suffering, and it leads to a lot of human suffering. To deny that in our lives. Try to deny that in our lives. In terms of how it applies to activism. Or in making life a better place. This is why it's more irrational. Much more conducive to consistence and more conducive to inner peace, except there really is no such thing as altruism. You're helping another person, even if you're helping yourself. I want to help. I want this person. I want to help. I want this person. You want help because you want to. It's because the world. It's part of your vision, making the world a better place. Fit your vision to be a better place in whatever way. Meet your needs in whatever way that you want to be met.
about the nature of happiness, and I actually cover this in a way that I in the book not talked about, a way that I think is not talked about enough in terms of libertarian philosophy and emotional freedom. Give yourself emotional freedom. Teach yourself that life is essential. Not allowing your emotions externally dictated by external forces yourself. To really claim that for yourself. The domain of your own mind is the source of the ultimate freedom. I'm like I said before, I'm a perfect messenger for a perfect message. I don't claim to, and I don't claim to walk that line, but I am where to walk that line. But I can see the line, and I know that I'm about everything that I have to grab for with everything that I have to try to live in line with those principles of happiness. And so the book of happiness is so important. This book is that it's not something. It's not happens to you. Something. It's not a reaction. Something that is choice. A reaction. It's a choice that you make when you have that emotional freedom. When you give yourself that emotional freedom. When you give yourself that to your mind, claim the domain of your mind and be able to compose it how you want. I hope in line with your own exercises. I hope that helps answer your question. Or just give you some data to chew on further. Data to chew on for your own your quest for your own happiness and inner peace. Acceptance of that nature of human. That acceptance of that nature of human existence of loneliness.
Well, we're going to move on one more to the next person.
Question? Edward, do you have a question? Someone give him a question.
Please make sure.
What kind of character is this Rock 40?
Okay. Well, this is a question for everybody in the audience. Do you think the Libertarian Party will actually nominate the Libertarian in 2020?
We're working on it.
Okay.
I would like to say though. I love how you. I love how efficient that is.
Okay, so my first question is for Augustus.
I noticed
now that you were saying man must overcome himself and man is corruptible and things like that. The first question, what about all the other 76 genders? What about all the other breast
That is a fair question. I did not take into account the other 76 genders. I am a white, heterosexual, cisgender, heterosexual.
You're binary, yeah.
And I apologize for being
And then, And then, question was going to be for both of you. Second question was going to be for both of you, so just ask you. But I guess I'll just ask you. One show that I watch in particular, and it's a topic that comes up a lot. In regards to that, you guys kind of brushed on a little bit, but not more of the extreme methods. One of them being chucking communists, Democrats, socialists out of helicopters. That's a topic that comes up a lot, and I just wanted to know your thoughts on it.
Right. Actually, I had to look that up today because I wanted numbers. Turns out he only did that to about 120 people. Turns out that with the gas and piloting expertise you would need, I mean,